Why should we have to drop our shepherd's pie, our burgers, our cheddar cheese and frothy milk in our cappuccinos because some woke representative feels he or she is going to rescue us from our sins and make the world a better place? Poppycock.
First of all, I'd like to tackle some of the points that come with defining emotion. Obviously, Stirling Students' Union is very obvious. It is only applying to the three outlets owned by the Students' Union. That would be Underground, Venue and Studio, I believe they call themselves now. And the plant-based, this isn't the same as veganism necessarily. Plant-based is a diet which abstains from all animal products. However, it is not a vegan choice. It is not the philosophical veganism that's necessarily espoused by people that describe themselves as vegan. Coming more onto the substance of it though, we all acknowledge as a basic fact the impact that agriculture, industrial agriculture particularly, and especially animal agriculture has upon the environment. We have seen the intensive resources that need to be used for the production of most of the meals in the modern Western diet. And yet we've done nothing about this. For years and years, and at this point millennia, we've settled upon a way of using the land that is not sustainable and has left us in this situation where we are sitting as a generation today facing a climate emergency. Not entirely the fault of our food system, of course. We have many, many things to blame for it. But it's one of the easiest things to change that we can do. It's always been the point of view of the Students' Union to reduce the climate footprint. I'm not sure how long many of you have been here, but at least since 2019, we've had changes in almost all areas of the Students' Union to reduce our waste and to become more carbon neutral. We've had the commitment in place to be carbon neutral since 2019, and we've even went as far as cutting down the promotional material given to union candidates down to nearly nothing in paper in the name of carbon neutrality. Why don't we do something that matters? Why don't we do something that has a substantial impact?
There is diversity in the world we live in, and with it comes diversity in what we eat. Stirling Students' Union must respect that diversity and not enforce a totalitarian regime which dictates our diets and what we can and cannot eat. It is our decision as individuals to choose what we eat, and the Student Union should recognise this individuality, not create an Orwellian 1984 authoritarian regime. My arguments today are not about meat only versus plant-based only. What I want to put across is that we should respect choice and that there should be room for both. It's not about pitching meat against plant. It is about meat and plant. There needs to be balance. If a student of this university wants to go totally plant-based, let them. But if another student wants to have a mixture of animal products, also let them. How awful would be the day that the Student Union starts policing us to check we are not drinking coffee with milk or putting ham in our sandwiches? The argument that land set aside to produce meat is larger than the arable land to cultivate crops is too simplistic a view. We should sympathise and understand the situation for other cultures around the world.
Hello. So on the topic of not representing the interests of students, I would have to severely disagree. I think that a plan-based catering system does represent the interests of students, and I'll tell you why. So talking about COVID, it was a mass disabling event caused by zoonotic diseases. Zoonotic diseases tend to arise from poor standards within animal agriculture. It's around 40 to 70% of zoonotic diseases arrives from animal agriculture. Animal agriculture and its broken relationship with land use has led to forcing wild animals and domesticated animals closer together, increasing the risk of diseases. And because COVID was a mass disabling event that, permanently altered the lives of millions of people, I can say that endorsing a system that endorses the rise of zoonotic diseases is particularly inclusive and doesn't really represent the interests of students. The plant-based commitment motion was really a symbolic motion. I don't disagree that a lot of the changes that what we implemented won't necessarily have a massive effect on the personal lives of students. I absolutely agree that most students will probably just tend to go to other outlets instead of adopting a wholly plant-based diet. But really, the symbolism of holding the university accountable and making them not endorse these industries that cause so much harm to people and communities is very powerful. In my opinion, that was one of the main reasons for passing this motion.
don't think I will add anything new to the discussion, just make a little bit of a sum of what's been said. But before I do that, let me just say that this is one of the most famous motion that has been passed in the union for the past few years. And with that kind of publicity, there's also been a lot of discussion and a lot of harassment, which I believe we can all condemn here. When it comes to the actual results, I understand that the symbolism of the movement, and at the end of the day, I will agree that we all need to do our part in order to reverse the effects of climate change. If reducing the amount of meat we eat is one of the steps we need to do, then yes, we should all consider about it. However, I do not believe that this is the way to go. The reason why is because I don't think the student population is yet ready to do such a thing. What has already been said is, first of all, we've got a student population that is mainly interested in sports and as such looking for a great amount of proteins. I asked later for the protein foods that students could eat instead. But let's be honest, I don't think anyone who is lifting weights will stop eating meat in order to eat a very big bulk of piece. I don't just see that possible. Maybe if, on the other hand, we in the future manage to find better alternatives, maybe that's up for discussion. But given the current means, I don't believe that's right now the case. Also, what the eventual result will be will not be students switching to the student union, will be going to the student union, will be, as already been said, choosing the other outlets of the university, such as SAP, Scran, Haldane, if that's still working. Actually, it's been a while since the last time I was here, to be honest. Eventually, you will have a place that, for the past 4 years, at least while I was here, was full of student life, will gradually lose its joy and its I don't know how to say. Anyway, at the end of the day, I believe you get the point that I'm trying to make here. I won't be taking any points of information just for the sake of time. I'm sorry. What that will do is that will basically reduce the profits of the students' union, which will lead to potentially student outlets closing down. Eventually, that will reduce the power and influence the students' union has, and will create a massive problem in democracy as well, because we won't be having a loud say if the universities has to step in order to save the very bad financial situation that we'll find ourselves.
A lot of people just come to this union and then they're automatically enrolled to the student union. And for many people, sports is a big deal why they come to this specific union. And it also benefits the other, like it's like a rising tide that lifts all boats. And I'm just saying, like, surely this is like almost insane that if you cut all meat, that's gonna alienate at least, this is obviously, I'm pulling this out of thin air, but at least 30% of the athletes that come to campus for training, and they save time by eating at the union, but they're not going to get any, enough protein from.
So, I understand the question. So, first of all, I'll say that a vegan diet while being an athlete is entirely possible. I mean, for work, I'm a cycle courier personally. I mean, definitely the vegan diet is not in any way less than my physical ability compared to before. But regards to that, we didn't consult directly with the sports union, no. The gym has its own food facilities inside it, obviously, which is fairly well used. They can more cater towards sort of, your traditional gym food. They will continue to serve meat as part of the university. And as I said before, they do the 10 other outlets that have more breadth. I mean, we refer to the students' union as free outlets. Let's be honest, if it's the bar and the coffee shop during the day, venue doesn't have a kitchen, regardless. We're realistically 2 of 13 options to vegan, barring obviously Vigo anyway. It really shouldn't dramatically affect sports. And I understand what you're saying about people automatically being members of the students' union. And that's a legal requirement, and people also have the legal right to leave the union if they wish. They wouldn't do so, obviously, off the back of this, but I understand.
This speech again. Any more points? Sorry.
Another question.
Is it very quick?
Yeah, very quick.
Okay.
So when you saw the number of the people who voted, didn't you think to yourself that like too many to be able to represent 17,000 people? You didn't have that concern at the back of your mind?
I did not know. I've passed other motions on smaller mandates, and I will likely continue to pass other motions on smaller mandates. 94 is the average student union attendance, and undoubtedly in this next union meeting, I'll probably pass even more motions with even less people.
We pass a motion to represent the interests of the students, not to represent the interests of the environment or the interests of animals. This is beyond the point of the student union because it represents students and their interests, whether or not it conforms with the moral and environmental standards of what people believe in. So what we have to figure out is, did the people who vote for this motion, and again, this is not a debate about whether or not the vote was legitimate, whether or not it followed the rules, or whether it could have been marketed better. We can still agree that, let's assume that all of this is aspiring. Now, did the people who show up, the 127 students, were they representative? Were they representing the interests of the students that come to this university? Their subjective preferences, not the preferences of the environment, not the preferences of animals.
Yes.
We are the environment.
I don't consider myself the environment. I consider myself a human being that can make its own decisions.
So you don't think you live within the environment?
I don't think the environment necessarily has to be my interest. But then again, the point is, people have subjective preferences that can be environmentally correct or incorrect, but it is not your decision to impose those beliefs on other people. Again, whether or not people's subjective preferences align with the environmental research or not is beyond the point of the student union, because the student union is supposed to pass the motion of the subjective preferences of its student, regardless of the environmental impact, regardless of the moral problems and issues it may have. Because fundamentally, if we make decisions at the student union based off of the interests of the environment and animals, the whole point of having an election becomes redundant. Because as I mentioned in the first part, we can arrive at these conclusions via logical and empirical studies, which would make the whole process of electing these decisions redundant, because we can arrive at these conclusions by default. So it becomes a farce.
Well, I unfortunately missed the opening when the House said that they wouldn't make this a moral issue, but obviously we're making a prescription here, and I would say that that means that it's a moral issue. We're arguing what is right to be done and what is wrong to be done, right? And so when we say that, oh, people can go to other places, or that this will have this difficulty, right? That, yeah, it would probably be challenging for some individuals to make plant-based decisions, or some individuals are not inclined to make plant-based decisions. But if we agree that these things are unsustainable, or that killing and torturing animals for, well, convenience or pleasure are unethical things to do, then why would we accommodate it? Why would I seek to accommodate people that seek to do the things that I believe are wrong? That's the whole position.
So if people can still go to other places, what are you trying to do?
Well, if for one, it would be, yeah, that's relevant. Okay, so for one, it would be giving people like the opportunity, because not everyone wants to go somewhere else. Not everyone is such a fierce meat eater that they're like, I'm abandoning the student union because they're not serving meat anymore. There's a huge percentage of I would probably guess I'm sure you would. I'm sure you're desperate to do this action. I'm sure they exist. But I'm sure that's not universal. And I'm sure there's going to be a bunch of people who don't have eaten plant-based things that will come to the uni, eat plant-based things and be like, oh my God, that's so chill. Why am I killing and torturing animals? It's just not that deep. Yeah.
If that was the case, surely because we already have plant-based options, they would already be eating them.
Well, they have a preference for eating meat. But and so they'll take it on. But there's obviously you have a preference against traveling a long distance as well, wouldn't you?
We have, with this motion, put forward a plan to do plant-based by 2025. And this was put to a democratic vote, which everyone at this university was very much welcome to participate in and to attend. And good, we had a much higher turnout than average, which is great. And the motion is in accord of the union's own commitment made in 2021 in regards to combating the climate crisis, and has a and is thus committed to do so. And speaking for myself personally, I came to this university to study international conflict and cooperation because I'm quite interested in making a change in the world. That's what I hoped. And so I was spent a lot of time last semester writing on the environment and climate change. So I did all the readings, and it's terrifying, when you because you hear all on the news, right, about how climate change is bad, and we all know that, right? But then when you read the actual scientific papers put forward by University of Oxford, University of Harvard, the Lancet, it really drives home just how terrifying this climate crisis is. And I know that it is just one union in one university, but a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step of hope, which I hope this motion brings forward. And because we are the next generation, we will be living in the world which is having to deal with the climate crisis. And for me personally, I do not want to look back and say that I could have done more. Like this, maybe it's all in vain, but we need to try. We need to come together to fight for our future. Our union represents us, the students, the future. And if we can do anything at all to try and bring a bit of hope back to this world, and my God, I need hope. I think we all do, not least because I've got a dissertation to write, but that's another matter. But, at the end of the day, if the union can do something on this long and arduous journey, then we by all means should, and it should be a democratic motion, which it was. And yes, I think I am in full support of this motion. And thank you very much for attending.